Tonight I ask permission from my fellow Dhamma practitioners to talk. Today is the day when we show respect for the Buddha and the Dhamma Vinaya by performing our duty as monks, as bhikkhus. We perform a very necessary part of our life as bhikkhus, what we call Patimokkhasamvara, restraint in the Patimokkha. We listen to the Patimokkha today, the training rules which prohibit certain ways of behavior, those things which are not beneficial to us in the practice. So we take the time to hear the rules and revise their meaning, so that we understand what we are prohibited from doing, to avoid our minds becoming blemished, and to give us a sense of purity in our practice of the brahmacharya. We have to discuss and explain the rules and regulations from time to time like this, to bring up a sense of care and circumspection in our behavior. We are now monks, bhikkhus, so we need to change our behavior from worldly behavior and develop the virtues of the Sangha, just as we chant in the evening chanting. The virtues of the Sangha, the qualities Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sankho, the Sangha, they are ones who practice well, for instance. Ones who practice for Saleka Dhamma, meaning that Dhamma which erodes and wears away the kilesa, the mental defilements. And it means we need to have core patipat, the ways and the methods of practice that will help achieve that end, that will bring up samma patipata, or correct practice, that is the practice that leads to peace. To be one who is supatipanno means that one is practicing in a correct way, a good way. In the very beginning, this means we have to know what the Patimokkha is and how to practice Patimokkhasamvara, how to be restrained in these rules of training. It means we need to concentrate and give priority to these rules, to be heedful, not careless. We have to develop a sense of personal care and responsibility, and develop a sense of restraint of body and restraint of speech. Why do we need this? Because our body and our speech are, as it were, slaves of Manodhamma. Manodhamma is the true essence, sappava, or the mind. And the Buddha said, Mano Pubangama Dhamma. The mind is the forerunner of everything. It's the leader, the chief, and everything is completed through the mind, because of the mind. The mind is the one in charge. It's the one that decides what we say, what we do. So if our actions are unwholesome, it stems from the mind. And unwholesome actions, they are both unwholesome in terms of Dhamma, the Buddha Dhamma, and the Buddha Dhamma would say criticize or look down on unwholesome actions. They're also criticized by the world, society in general. So we must learn how to be restrained and careful to avoid unwholesome mind states taking over our hearts, our minds, and leading on to unwholesome speech, unwholesome actions. The mind with akusala mental states is inferior, it's faulty. So if they arise, we must learn how to be restrained, not to allow this unwholesome mind states to spill out into our actions and make karma that would harm ourselves and bring ourselves suffering. For instance, aggressive behavior, threatening behavior. We have to learn to restrain those intentions, those unwholesome intentions which might arise in ourselves, not to display them in our speech or our actions. We have to learn how to restrain our actions and our speech in all aspects of life. For instance, if lay people come here and they ask us, where does this road lead? We might answer, oh, it goes to such and such a place. And that's the end of it. We answer simply in a restrained, simple manner. We don't have to add extra views and opinions stemming from our mental proliferation. We don't have to say, oh, this is a good way to go, that's a bad way to go, adding all kinds of extra things which could lead to confusion, trouble, or even a sense that the people might feel that we are lying or misleading them. So restraint helps us to experience a mind of fullness and completeness. And in basic restraint of body and speech leads on to what we call Indriyasamvara, restraint of the senses. For instance, when our eyes see a form, we have to learn how to practice mindfulness and restraint with that seeing. When our ears hear a sound, we have to practice Indriyasamvara, restraint with the hearing. These sense doors are where goodness and badness, sukha and dukkha arise. We have to practice restraint here and establish sati and a firmness of mind at these sense doors. Just as if we're standing on the shore, on dry land next to the ocean, and we can see the water in the ocean, we see it forming up into waves of different sizes, rising up. They come together, the water gathers together in waves and then moves to the shore. When these waves reach the shore, they crash and they disappear. We have to observe all sense contact that we have through the sense doors, just like this. When we have sense restraint, then the eyes see a form. Maybe there's pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, attraction, aversion, but we shouldn't give any importance to this. These conditions are just as they are. They just arise and they pass away. With sati present, we don't follow or attach to these conditions. We don't get caught up in them, so that tanha or craving cannot arise. When tanha or craving doesn't arise, the mind doesn't become blemished. Seeing is just seeing. Hearing is just hearing. It doesn't lead on to attraction or aversion, good or bad. Sense contact is just sense contact. It's made up of causal conditions. There are different factors which allow sense contact to take place. You have an eye, you have light. Hearing, there needs to be a healthy ear, and there has to be sound waves somewhere produced for hearing to arise. When sense restraint is practiced, it's just this much. And the result means that there is no harm or danger for the practitioner, for our minds. It's our duty as bhikkhus to practice this. We have to train like this, and it trains us to stop. We learn how to stop. We become still. We can observe things. If we can stop the proliferation that stems from sense contact like this, then it gradually loses its strength. It fades away, it disappears. Just the same with material things. If we don't give importance to their price, their value in the world, then we won't get concerned about them. We won't get involved with them and want to touch them, pick them up or own them. By stopping in this way, then delusion is stopped. It cannot arise and overcome the mind. So this is the duty of Indriya Samvara. Another part of our practice as bhikkhus is what we call akaraniya gicca. The duties we have to practice on certain occasions towards the use of requisites. This is fundamental to the lifestyle of a bhikkhu. We have to practice bhojane matanyuta. This is our duty in the use of the basic requisites and necessities of life, meaning we know how to use them with moderation. We need these basic necessities to support this body, the khandhas. We can't avoid them. For instance, we need food. We gain food from bindabata. We don't just say we eat, we consume food, we say bindabata. This word has very profound meaning, an important meaning for us as bhikkhus. It means the way we obtain our food, the correct way. And it also refers to the purpose of food. Bindabata refers to taking food, receiving food in a way that is correct in the practice, just for ending hungry feelings, for ending the weakness of the body that comes from lack of food. It doesn't mean for indulging in delicious tastes or becoming infatuated with food. Bindabata means we just learn to eat to keep the body going for practice for a day and a night. It is our duty to look after this rupa khandha, and so this is how we reflect. Similarly with the robes, with clothing, we need to protect ourselves from the weather, from the environment, so we do need to use clothing or robes. They also provide us with covering to protect our sense of shame in society. So we reflect like this when we use the robes. They're just for protection against weather, from insect bites and so on, from heat and cold. They're not for developing infatuation with sensuality, getting caught up into how the robes look, how they feel, how comfortable they are and so on. So we have to contemplate the truth that this body is actually patigula, it's unpleasant, it's foul, it's a super, it's unattractive, and the robes come in contact with that, so the robes become unattractive as well. And that's the true nature of it. This body and the robes that we wear, they're all subject to the three characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So it's this reflection that informs our practice. The senasana, our lodgings, are the same. We have to contemplate that our lodgings, our dwellings, are just a place to protect us from the harshness of the weather, the rain, the sun, the cold, or from insects and creeping animals that might harm us. Our senasana, our lodgings, help us to reduce some of the dukkha of living in the world, but it can't stop everything, because it can't stop us from getting older, it can't stop us from getting ill or from dying. And the lodgings themselves are subject to this as well. The lodgings get older and they start to fall apart. The three characteristics are there in the lodgings, just as everything else. The medicines we use, again, we have to contemplate that these are used just to help us to adjust the body to different conditions, adjust the body, the elements, to keep it in reasonable health and protected and strong. But we have to take them with moderation, and we have to reflect on them as we use them. What is the right amount? And have the goal of the practice in our minds as the end goal when we're taking medicines. We have to learn what is the right amount, the middle way, say, where we're not being too strict, but not being too soft or relaxed either. This is what we call bhojane matanyuta, knowing the right amount in the things we consume. We have to do this as a samana. We have to learn to do this in a way that's maybe different from the rest of the world. We practice fewness of wishes and developing a sense of contentment. Another aspect that we contemplate in the basic training of a bhikkhu is developing a sense of energy and effort in the practice, developing the energy to erode away the kilesas. And this means we have to learn how to go against the stream of our kilesas, or the mind. If you look at fish in rivers, they give you an example of this. When fish are strong and healthy, they always swim upstream against the current. It's only weak or dead fish that flow down with the current. We must use the ways of practice, the ways of training, to give us strength and become brave in the practice, so that we can strive on to meet the challenges of the practice. We must develop Chakaryana Yoga, meaning dedication to wakefulness, that persistent effort in the practice to go against the stream of akusala mind states and the kilesa, and to go against the tendency towards sensual indulgence. Sometimes it means we have to be patient and endure, so that we can go against the stream, go against the grain of our defilements. We have to endure as we sit, endure as we walk, endure as we stand, endure as in this posture of lying down. All of this is Chakaryana Yoga. We don't give up, we don't retreat, turn away from the practice, because if we do that, we'll become weak. We don't become concerned or worried about some dukkha vedana that might arise, or the different problems that arise in the practice. We see it as just as it is and not worry about it. We learn to use the 13 ascetic practices to develop the practice. Again, not to be always just seeking comfort or attached to comfort and sukha vedana. All of these are the factors, the qualities that lead towards being one who is supatipanno, the practice that is for the ending of sensual attachment and intoxication with the world through the senses. We have to go against all the behaviour that is inspired by the tanha, the craving in our minds. We have to go against that. The Buddha taught this. He practiced this himself, and he had the same 4 elements, 5 khandhas that we have. We have to reflect on that. We have to remember that we are also able to develop the same practice that the Buddha did. We have the same ways of practice, and we have the same qualities that he had. In the Jataka stories, we know from one of his previous lives, he was superb or perfect in his virya, in his effort. In the life known as Mahachanaka, he had to use all his effort and develop perfect effort as a barami to overcome the challenge of when he was dropped into the ocean. When he was dropped into the ocean at that time, he's surrounded by danger. He could have drowned at any time through tiredness, he could have been eaten or attacked by sea creatures, and the whole situation seemed hopeless. There was no sign of the shore or the land or the end of the journey. But because he was developing the perfection of virya, his persistent effort and energy, he didn't give up. He stuck to his duty, his aim, which was to keep going, to find shore, to find land, and without wavering from that goal. Whatever challenge came up, whatever would come up, he didn't turn back or turn us away from his goal of swimming to find shore. Whatever came along, he wasn't turned from that task. He kept going, using all his energy without doubting, without any concern about what might happen. We do the same. We have to learn how to keep practicing, and if we do, we will gradually get a clearer and clearer picture of our goal. We'll gain confidence in ourselves and our efforts, and will develop more energy, more skill in the practice. I've even had lessons in this from lay people. They've recounted some of their own experiences. There was one time an Air Force officer told me how he was staying down on the coast and he wanted to go and visit an island off the coast. So he and two friends, they hired a boat. They agreed a price with the boat owner, and the boat owner took them across the sea to this remote island. They wanted to explore the island. It wasn't very big, but it was big enough that when they went off walking around, they lost sight of the boat owner, who was just resting on the beach. They were taking some time to explore the islands, and eventually the driver, the boat owner, he fled. He perhaps got greedy just to take the money, or he got bored or fed up. Anyway, he fled, left them there. When they returned to the beach, there was no boat. These were three friends together, three men. They realized they had no food, no water, and there was no possibility of surviving on this island. So they realized their only chance was to swim. And because they were men and they'd been trained how to bring up this sense of, you could say, heroism or strength to meet the challenges, they just thought, well, they'll swim for it, and if they die swimming, so be it. At least they've tried their best to get out of their situation. Whether they get eaten by sharks or they just tire out, then so be it, but they're not going to give up. So they started swimming. It was already late in the day and it became dark. When they got tired during their swim, they would look up at the stars to try and get a bit of more energy and inspire themselves, and they just kept going till eventually one of them, the head just bashed into sand. They couldn't even see the land. His head just bashed the sand, and he realized, we're safe, we've actually got to the other side. This is the quality of what we call Purisa Archanaya, meaning a heroic person or a strong person who's able to meet the challenges that they face without giving up. This is the kind of energy we have to develop, this sense of not giving up. When we do give up, all our energy starts to flow away and we become more attached. So we must train and practice so that we can learn to practice, whether it's day or night. We keep practicing, dedicating ourselves to wakefulness and mindfulness, whatever the posture, whatever the time, the place. This is what we call one who has retinue, meaning one who lives for just one night, meaning that they are dedicated to using their time in the present moment, just the night that they're in, and making the best of it, dedicating themselves to wakefulness, to the day and the night. They're careful, they're heedful. This is the character of the Supatipanno, one who has virtue and the qualities necessary to realize the Dhamma. They have virya, they have khanti. Whether they're on their own or with others, they always act as a samana. They're always practicing these qualities, the Indriya Samvara, the Patimokkhasamvara, and so on. They have them there, whether they're on their own in seclusion or out with other people. And they practice as a samana, one who is peaceful. And they're not caught into the loka dhammas, the worldly dhammas. They see the harm, the danger in these worldly dhammas. They don't make them the goal of their practice. They're not aiming to seek after the loka dhammas, the worldly dhammas, because they know that's a weakness that will lead them to suffering. The Buddha said, one who sees the danger in the loka dhammas, they see the danger in attaching to praise and blame, gain, loss, sukha and dukkha. The one who sees this danger, then they become very careful, and they practice as a samana who's seeing danger in samsara. So we have to learn how to practice as a supatipanno, one who practices well, ujjupatipanno, one who practices directly. All the different qualities we have to develop, and it also means we develop sense of metta and karuna for others, kindness and compassion. One who does become supatipanno, ujjupatipanno, they become like a big tree providing cool shade for people in the hot sun. All the other people we come into contact with can benefit from our practice in different ways. So I encourage each and every one of you to be brave and firm in your practice and to be committed and sincere and to keep practicing.